been a crazy couple weeks for the phone world. We've had sort of now about 2-ish weeks for the dust and maybe some of the luster to come off of the iPhone 13 lineup. And the new shiny thing that I think people are expecting to get into their pocket is the Pixel 6. And it's looking to be the Pixel, the definitive Pixel, and a change from everything Google has done in the past. So now you've got a tough decision if you haven't already jumped into a new phone. Which one should you get? So on one hand, we already know what the iPhone is. We know what it's offering, right? It's got industry-leading cameras, an even stronger ecosystem with iOS 15, and finally, at least on the Pro side, beautiful ProMotion display. So all things considered, we gotta decide, and I wanna help you decide. Grab an iPhone 13 something, or wait for the Google Pixel 6. So when you look at the history of Pixel design, it's been very utilitarian. Some people, it's been beautiful. Some people, it looks not so beautiful, but it's been consistent. And there's been slight iterations of that design. But oh man, they are changing things up with the Pixel 6. Friend of the channel, John Prosser, leaked this design months ago. And like I said earlier, Google just put the whole thing up on display in New York. Still appears to be polarizing. To my eyes, though, it is giant heart emojis. I love the way this phone looks. I think they made a rectangle look different. And that's sort of a tough thing to do because every version of rectangles have already been out. But I like that camera bar. I like the different color combinations. I like the way the phone looks. I haven't held it in my hand yet. From an aesthetic standpoint, I think Google's got an absolute home run on their hands. All right, so design aside, hands down, the biggest rumor surrounding the Pixel 6 line is an introduction of Google's own silicon, the Tensor chip. So this new SoC marks the beginning of Google's journey into chip design for their own mobile devices. And we've talked ad nauseum about this, but I think at this point it's known that there's a difference between software on a Pixel device and the Android experience on every other phone, because Google curates sort of a pure, unadulterated stock experience. It's sort of Google's version of what Android should look like, and since they make it, they kind of get to have a say. But now with the inclusion of hardware optimization, I think you can theoretically look forward to a few awesome things. So better performance, better battery life, long-term support with up to 5 years as reported by Front Page Tech, which does match what Apple's offering, and possibly an improved ecosystem with their other mobile devices and laptops and Chromebooks and such, possibly receiving the Tensor chip as well. And it should be obvious what the improvements are. Google's making the hardware, Google's making the software. They get a lot more control over what things can run, so things like system drain and app drain and things that sometimes can kill battery, especially when you look at what you're getting from Samsung or other Android manufacturers. Google can at least try to cut some of those off, at least when it comes to the core stock apps. So here's what you can expect from the Pixel 6, the non-Pro version. 6.4-inch screen, 1080p FHD plus display, 90 Hz refresh rate, in-display fingerprint reader, obviously Android 12, being powered by Google's Tensor chip. On the Pro side, and this one's got a soft spot in my heart, 6.7-inch screen, QHD 1440p, 120 Hz refresh rate, so the first time that'll make its way onto a Pixel. The other Pixels have been 90. In-display fingerprint reader, Android 12, and then their Tensor chip as well. Those seem accurate. You can take those as almost true, but the camera stuff is still kind of floating as to what's true or not true. But here, sort of what I think you can expect. So for the Pixel 6, 8 megapixel front camera. On the rear side, and again, regular Pixel 6 here, 50 megapixel main shooter. That is a giant departure from the hardware they've been using on the camera side for essentially years. 12 megapixel ultra wide, which should be pretty awesome. No zoom, unfortunately, on the Pixel 6. It'd be a pretty beastly 4,614 milliamp hour battery, which is oddly specific. 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is not a huge amount, but again, with Google now making the hardware and the software, 8 gigabytes should be absolutely plenty, at least I would expect it to be. Storage, 128 or 256. On the Pro side, things predictably get a little more, let's call it pro-y. 12 megapixel front camera, 50 megapixel main shooter, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 48 megapixel telephoto, which has a strong suspicion this could actually be a periscope zoom camera, so just nutso on the zoom. A 5,000 milliamp hour battery, 12 gigabytes of RAM, 128, 256, or 512, and if I'm flapping my arms around like a Muppet, it's because those sound like perfect specs to me, and I am pumped for the Pixel. So these specs probably are painting out a complete picture of what the Pixel 6 line is going to be. And I'm trying to temper myself and remember that what matters is that experience. And with the launch of Android 12, we sort of yet to see how the software and hardware are going to work together. But with the 5,000 milliamp hour battery, Google controlling hardware and software, there's, I think, a good chance this could be a 2-day plus phone. At the very least, end of day, 40% left, which is awesome. Then you couple in Google's impressive computational photography, these new sensors, and I think it's ready for our minds to just be blown away by what these cameras can do. If you remember what Google can do with really 12 megapixel cameras, or even just one camera going back a few generations, they can do now theoretically with this way higher resolution, more data, improved computational things, improved machine learning. I'm expecting this to be the best camera phone in the history of camera phones, and that includes the iPhone 13 Pro. So one major reason to wait on the Pixel 6 is the underdog story, right? This very well could be Google's last big shot at grabbing some significant market share in the mobile phone space. And this new phone seems to be a radical departure from the Pixels we've known before. It's big, it's flashy, and like I said earlier, previous Pixel phones settled for being really useful and practical tools with great cameras. So prior to the Pixel 6, we saw Google take a step back from the flagship space, especially with the Pixel 5, and stick to the mid-range market that was working for them with the A line. And now they're stepping right back into the ring, into the flagship world, and they want to be compared head-on with the Apples, the Samsungs, Huawei, Xiaomi, OnePlus, all those big guys. And I, for one, am pumped to see what they have to offer, because I believe competition is amazing for consumers. Even if you're not looking to buy a Pixel phone, they will push Apple, they will push Samsung, and that is an absolutely amazing place to be for anybody who loves smartphones. I'm curious how the Pixel 6 is going to perform on the video side with the Tensor chip and Google's machine learning. Is video going to be as amazing as the stills? I still want to see battery life. I'm expecting awesomeness. I still want to see how the software and hardware work together, but Google certainly has the chops to make amazing hardware and amazing software. And if any company from a sole sort of vertically integrated first party perspective can give Apple a run for their money, it's Google. And I think it's going to be worth the wait.